Yeah. His story, what he spoke about in that whole. Well, I don't think I'll ever forget that one. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was just crazy seeing how silent he was there and how one day.
Sure.
Beautiful place to.
Sam?
Yeah. It was nuts that we did that on Stephen Torah and sang Sudan. The last time we sang it was Sudan.
Contrast, it's full circle. Two more before we start now. Ofakim. Parents and older people.
I guess I can say for me, I mean,
Everybody good knows that. Like, you haven't met him yet. He went to the bathroom around an hour ago.
that's what I'm known for now, I guess. I was in the area like before everything happened. We did a coven about probably 15 kilometers from here, and just seeing like the area and like the streets that I would run with like my group as like just a stom like fitness just to run turned to a battlefield was absolutely just blew my mind. It was strange place to be in.
Anybody for the last one?
Try and talk.
I'll try.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I'm not competitive. I think for me, the bomb shelter where the old lady was shot, like seeing the actual holes in the wall was just, you don't see that on Instagram, you know?
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Just thank you.
Enjoying being with you for a few hours. Yashir Koch to Rav Kotler.
Michal, bevakasha.
So, welcome everyone. My name is Michal Sandhouse. I'm actually not from here. I'm from nearby Modi'in. I live in Shalabim. And yet I come here whenever I'm asked to tell my personal story and the story of why people say that Ofakim should be called a city of heroes. So a bit about myself. I'm the third child of 7. Very traditional Moroccan family. You can hear the the Moroccan accent. And I grew up not far from Medellin in a small moshav. And my oldest brother, Moshe Ofakim, you heard the name? Okay, so here we see, it happens every time. Every time a group arrives, whenever a group arrives, or that I go into, today I went to a supermarket, and one person caught me and she said, I have to tell you something. Your brother. Everywhere I go, it's like that. Yes, a lot of, so this is what we're here for. My brother, the oldest brother, how should I put it? He was a bit of an hyperactive kid, but in a very, very positive way. He was always busy, always doing, always running projects. Let's do this, let's do that. He thought that he said at the very young age that he wants to be the chief of staff. He wants to be the head of the Israeli army. And I remember myself as a 5-year-old thinking that he's the officer and we have to do what he says, okay? So he would train us run it. Yesterday, at the supermarket yesterday, a lady came in and said, I remember you as kids. Your brother will run through the fields and all the kids of the Moshav will run right after him and he will say, okay, come on, we're doing this, we're climbing ropes from the ceiling, from the top of the building. And he really pretended that he's our officer and we are his military crew and we have to do whatever he says, and he trained us, and he always prepared himself for the army. Okay, that was his goal, that was his dream. Comes the army, and he becomes what is known as Nachlai, which means they start a yeshuv, they started a kibbutz on top of a mountain up in the Galilee, a group of 30 young, enthusiastic people. They spend a year and a half, instead of Hester, they spend a year and a half building the yeshuv, and then they go to a full army service, okay? So during his army service, he became a paratrooper officer, okay? And during the training, they have to do personal tests, like personal interviews. They have to see not just mental capability, not just physical abilities. They need to see that the person is able to lead, that is able to take responsibility over others, that is compassionate, that is caring. So they took him to an interview, and they said, listen, Moshe, as you know, about 20% of the people that start the course will not end it. They will drop for whatever reasons. What are you going to do if for some reason we decide you're not going to be a paratrooper officer? And he said, I'll do what I always did. Find a project and run with that project I had. And he said, you know what? There's so many fun, exciting, nice places in Israel that are, for whatever reasons, are not flourishing. I'll find a small community and I'll work with that community. And luckily, he finished the course and he became a paratrooper officer. And during his military service, he got wounded and declared handicap and had to leave the army. But he was a man of his word. And at that time, he works for Bnei Akiva. He stopped when he finished his army service. He went to work for Bnei Akiva, and he was the head of the department that was in charge of the trips, all the tiulim, all the machane kites, all the mosheva, all those things. That was his department. Okay, and we grew up in a house that when you go on a trip anywhere in Israel, my father would come with the Bible, and he would open the Bible and say, "Let's study about this specific place," because everything in Israel has to do with the Bible. Okay? So my brother decided that all the Bnei Akiva Tiulim from now on will have a Bible section into them. You have to study the historical background, the geography and everything. And where about in the Bible is this place mentioned? And he truly believed that in order to love Israel, to get to know Israel, you do it through your feet and from the Bible. And that was his attitude, and that's how all the Bnei Akiva took a path into that. And while he's working in Bnei Akiva, he got married to his wife that you saw here, that you heard some of what Joseph had to say about her. She's also a very outstanding lady. She also worked in Bnei Akiva. They got married, they had their first son, and on the week that they decided to move to a new community, they decided to move to Ofakim. Why? They went to look at all different communities around the country, and they realized that Ofakim is a very, very friendly place. People are friendly. Kind just because you're a fellow Jew. If you're a fellow Jew, we open our doors, we open our heart. Feel free to come. And he said, with that community, I want to work. But 24 years ago, Ofakim was not as nice as it is today. And when we'll go outside, we'll see that it's not the nicest still. Okay? What I'm trying to say is that it was a very low social economical background. Okay? But the people were amazing people. So he said, I'm going to work with this community. And they get a group of 15 young families, what is known as the Garin Torani, and they come here. I won't tell you the stage of the apartment that they had, but it was not like the house we grew in. We have a big mansion, and then you have to move to a tiny apartment. Whatever. The same week that he moved here on Tuesday. On Sunday, somebody had to open the door. That's all he did. He wasn't a wealthy man. He was a man of connections. Mandel Foundation. If anybody ever heard of the Mandel Foundation? Wonderful, wonderful Jewish family from North America, from America. I'm not really sure, Chicago, not really sure where from. 3 brothers. They're like 90 now. They started the Mandel Jewish Foundation, where they donate money for educational leadership only. Programs of Jewish educational leadership around the globe. I almost studied with them. I did my degree in education leadership, the first one, the second one, the third one. Okay? I was the first one in my family to go to Harvard. Not very proud of it today. But I also grew up in a small moshav. My parents came from Morocco. They never graduated high school because they had to go and work. And Moshe and I went to college. And after us, the other siblings. And when we got our masters, it pulled everybody a bit forward. Let's do masters. Okay. And then PhD. Moshe was just about to start his PhD. But Mandela heard of Moshe and said, Moshe, come study with us. We want you to become a professional in education and leadership. And he did. He got a scholarship the first year. He went to Yerushalayim, back and forth, studied. And after a year, they said, listen, Moshe, we have a small problem. Really not sure what to do. Can you run Mandel? And he said, yes, I can, but under one condition. I don't want to be the head of the educational leadership program. You have so many other qualified people that are already doing that because he studied at the program. He said, I don't need to replace them. They're doing a great job. Let's start a new program. A program for social leadership. And they say, great. The only problem is the only place we have to start a college for educational leadership is in Haifa. And Moshe lives here. So for 7 years, he's the head of the Social Leadership Academy in Haifa. And he goes back and forth every day, 7 years. But he was a busy man. He did not have time to drive back and forth. So he bought a car that waited at a train station in Haifa to take him from the train station to his office. And he bought a car and put it in Beersheba train station to drive from Beersheba home. During those 7 years, they built a train station. And for 2.5 hours each way, 2 hours each way, he works. But not at his paid job in volunteering. How can one volunteer from the train every day? He writes curriculum of how to build social leadership. And he writes curriculum on how to trace the proper youth for the program. And he writes curriculum. How do you take business people and turn them into social mentors? And he volunteers in endless amutot. And he founds his own amutot. He founded an amutat called Dor V'Chetzi, a generation and a half. How do you do that? You need money to start an amutat. No, you don't. You need a vision. And his vision was that when we see a person in the street, when I see you, Rabbi, no offense, I don't know who you are. What's your life story? I don't know anything about you. And oftentimes, young adults will not respect elders. You're not old, so we can use your example. We're about the same age. So he realized that youth around the country don't always respect elders. And he wanted them to know that the elders are the ones who built this country for us. But how would they know that if they don't meet with them? So he started an organization called, an amuta called Dor V'Chetzi, a generation and a half, where young adults from what we call peripheria, okay, from the weaker cities, meet with elders, with older people. Let's say they're 60s, okay? And he takes a 60-year-old with a nice young fellow, and he says, you should hear his life story. You've been alone. But that adult has to give something in return. So you will help them. What can you help with? Math? Great. And that program now is through the entire country. I have 6 volunteers at the school I work in. I'm a teacher, and I write curriculum. And I drive principals crazy with my curriculum. She'll tell you I'm very good at that. And he said, what was your profession, if I may ask?
Real estate.
Real estate. Wonderful. So you will come with all your life baggage with you. You obviously have a lot of knowledge and experience from real estate business. And all you need to do is build a vision in that young man. But you're building that vision through telling him your story. Where did you start? How did you start? What helped you become so successful? That's it. And
love how
all,
she still assumes that you're successful and I'm some old schlumpy rabbi. I love the accept.
I never
I don't even have, I don't even have glasses
I did
on.
not
Look at
say
this guy, man.
I did not say
That was the Parish Rashi. It's fine. We understood what was going on there. No 56 cousins over here.
Not too late.
It works charm for my daughters. Every time there's a school trip, no matter where they are in the country, I will call the principal and say, listen, somebody's going to come pick up my daughter for dinner. Okay. And he say, but we're at the end of nowhere. And I say, one of my cousins. And at a certain point, they were in Elon Moreh for Shabbat. And I called and I said, Rav Lebanon, he said, yes, you're going to tell me Rav Lebanon is your cousin. And he's a very well-known rabbi in Israel. And I said, almost. He's married to my cousin. And he cracked a lot and said, this is crazy, you're a murderer. Yes, I have my mother's side as well, 24 cousins there. So the young adults learned to respect the elders and heard amazing life stories. And I have at my school 6 volunteers. One of them, this old, weary, late 70s, he comes to my school, and the kids didn't think much of him. And he tutors math. He takes the weaker students, and he works with them on their math skills. And he takes the best students, and he works with them on mathematical thinking. And he's really an older man, very quiet, very shy, all wrinkled. And one time I said, Odette, please tell the kids your story. He said, my story? Why do I have to tell them? There's nothing special about it. And I said, Odette, I know what... בוא. לא, אתה לא יכול, אבל אם אתה רוצה, אז תבוא. That's my nephew.
Right, yeah, right.
And he said, כן, זה הבן שלהם. He just celebrated his bar mitzvah last week. And I said, Odette, I know your story. I had to sign that you can volunteer at my school. So tell the kids the story. And he said, I worked in the army for many years. I was in charge of the rocket department. I developed the rockets. And today I volunteer in the space department. And I was one of the people who built the Bereshit.
Lunar lander.
And the kids, their jaws drop. Okay? Because we really don't know who the person is. Just give them a chance. So that organization is running through schools in the country. It started as a place in Tel Aviv where they meet. And today the volunteers come into the school. So one person, one vision. And how many things it can change. So you heard Rabbi Hafshir saying that I knew your brother. He was a bulldozer. Yes, he was. He did so many projects around the country. And during the last 4 years, internationally. He became the head of Tesha Shtayim Tesha. I see some smiles. Do you know what it is?
It's the
Anybody have heard of Tesha Shtayim Tesha?
you do like a pair a day and you finish all of that in 3 years.
Yeah. So Tesha Shtayim Tesha is the International Organization for Bible Studies. Okay? Bible accessibilities. My brother said the world received a gift called the Bible. And somehow, over the last 30, 40 years, we kind of pushed it aside. The entire world knew the Bible, the Christians too, but they forgot about it. And I want to bring the world the gift of Bible once again. He was Moshe, he brought the Bible again. And he became the head of the Tesha Shtayim Tesha. The one chapter a day is one tiny, tiny fraction of what that organization does. Everybody can go online, write Tesha Shtayim Tesha, 929, and see an enormous wealth of knowledge regarding the Bible. You like comics? You read only comics? Great! They have almost half the Bible in comics. You like archaeology? We have pictures of archaeological digs around the world. What do you like? You like just to hear a podcast? Here you go. You want a cheer? You wanted this? It's all there. And through that, he started working with the Israeli president. Dick, friends, the president came to the Shiva and said, I'm going to tell you two things about your brother. One, he was a pain in wherever you guys want to define it.
Is this President Rivlin?
What?
Rivlin? Or
No,
Herzog?
no, no.
Herzog. I'm tired of that. Yeah, go ahead. Herzog. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm half below.
And he said he was a pain. Every week or other week, we'll have meetings regarding writing curriculum, regarding since the establishment of the State of Israel once a month, it's called Chug HaTanach at the president's house, okay? Every month, there's a circle of scholars, Bible scholars, that sit and study Bible at the president's house, and it's broadcast around the country. He decided it's going to become an international thing, and they started doing all different type of programs from Jews and non-Jews and scholars around the world, and it was broadcast in Korea and in you name it. He was all over the place. So the president said, every meeting, he will come up with a new idea, and I'll say, Moshe, your brain never stops running? You always have another thing in mind? What's going on? We just thought of an idea. We just started working. And my brother would say, that's already in motion. We already appointed a few people on that project. Let's begin to start a new project. And the other things he said was, one midah I learned from Moshe. No matter what meeting we're having, no matter who's sitting with us, if it's one-on-one, if it's a large forum, if it's wealthy people that want to donate towards a big project, if it's simple people, it doesn't make any difference. Once your parents called, he would stop everything and say, excuse me, Mr. President. Now you're president. We're fine now, right? Excuse me, Mr. President. But my parents come first. And during the Shiva, that's what my parents heard. That his parents, they come before the president, before the prime minister, before anybody else. Do you know why? Because every one of you sitting here is sitting here thanks to your parents. Thanks to their hard work they did raising you. We are who we are thanks to our parents. When I got married, I kept my name. I'm first, before my husband's name. I'm first Michal Chayon. Still, if you look at my Teudat Zehut, I am Michal Chayon. That Sand House came after. Not very common, but as you can see, I'm not exactly quiet. This is my brother. Always with a smile. Always with a smile. Always. No matter when you see him, always with a smile. If you get tired of hearing of what he did during his short life, I can tell you that he did much more. In between driving to Haifa for 7 years, he became a paramedic. And he was during his ambulance driver's course. And he became a firefighter. Remember I told you he was handicapped and released from the army at the age of 24? Once you're released from the army for medical reasons, they declare handicapped. And they give you a monthly salary. 15 years ago, my brother decided that he doesn't want the money. He wants to go back to the army. Now, who would take a 40-year-old person, 40-something, handicapped, back to the army? He hasn't been in the army since the age of 24. What are you thinking? And he said to the army, take it, wave away the papers, rip them up, the papers that I'm handicapped. I'm fully fit. Take me back into the army. And in order to be fully fit, he trained for a long time. He trained for a long time. It was extremely heavy. It was 150 kilos. And he said, no more. My dream is to go back into the army. And he trained till he got to 85 kilos. Half of what it was. And said, I'm fit. and went to the hospital and checked me completely. My heart is as young as a 24-year-old. My this, that, what add up, I'm ready to go back to the army. And again, he used his connections. And he got back into the army. But by now, he had a specialty. He was an expert of logistics. So what he did for the army is to run the entire South region, the entire logistics department of the South region. Volunteering. Simply because he had a lot of spare time. Now, Moshe and his wife had 5 kids. Every one of them is a different story. I can tell you endless story about all of them. For example, Amitai, the oldest, started the highest shul in the world. And for the past 3 years, we're Kippas Ruga people, more than Orthodox, okay? But for the past 3 years, he was Shaliach Chabad to Anaforna. And he built, on top of the Anaforna, a shul! Very common people, right? A 23-year-old guy will start a shul. The shul functioned only during the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. Okay, he would fly there. Where's the budget coming from? I'll tell you. All the kids they started a minhag. Okay? If their father has a way to get money, they will find their own way. And their way was very simple. They would call and say, Duda Michal, I have a project to do. And I'll say, great. What does it mean for me? And they will name the price. And if I can do it, I will. And if not, they'll get another auntie, uncle, as I said, on 1 of 7. And that's how they made their dreams come true. So Amitai started the highest shul in the world, in Anaforna. And just verifying my fidelity. Charles, I'm speaking. Okay. That's my husband. I ended up marrying an American. So Amitai started the highest shul in the world. And when you get there, it's not just a shul, somebody has to cook for Rosh Hashanah. And he would organize the meals for 150 guests, because that's how Chabad works around the world, right? Whoever's around can come for the meal. 150 people, let's do it! I'm used to it. My father dragged me from the age 0 to all these projects around the world. Amitai has a saying that under the age of 5, he slept more days outdoors in his sleeping bag with his father camping than he slept in his own bed. So he started the highest shul in the world. Last year, right after Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur was a snowstorm. And they got cooped in the mountain. And Amitai took responsibility on the entire process of evacuating over 4,000 people from the mountain. Simple, guys. I mean, nothing big. We all do projects like that on a daily basis. And Amitai is the quiet brother. There was a brother called Eliad. If my brother was hyperactive, and the ad was hyperactive octopus on steroids. He would be everywhere, everything, whatever you need, you name it, he's there. He was very big, as you can see, bigger than his father, and my brother was tall. My brother was 196. 196. His sons are over 2 meters. You saw the little guy here. Okay? He's a tiny guy, 13. Hasn't started growing. Eliad was born massive. I gave birth to my daughter a bit after Eliad. My daughter was born full term, 5.2 pounds. Eliad was born week 36, induced, because at week 36 he was 12.8. Oh my God. So he came to the world and said, "Here I am." And from that moment on, you knew that he's there. You heard him. And Eliad, at the age of 14, decided that he no longer needs to attend school. Why? Because he was an autodidact. He doesn't need to attend school. He studies everything on his own. He taught himself to play 8 different musical instruments. Go to his room. There's drums and guitars and whatever. He taught himself and said, "I'm bored at school. I hate school. Let me do something different." So his father, Moshe, and the head of school, that happened to be Moshe's friend from the army, said, "Okay, let's build this kid a program."
you don't need to attend classes. You need to attend all the tests, maintain a certain average, and instead of going to school, you have to volunteer. So at the age of 14, Eliad starts volunteering with handicapped children. Okay? Kids that suffer mental disabilities, physical disabilities, everything. And he allocates his entire time to work with them. At the age of 18, he calls his brother Amitai and says, Amitai, we are buying a car. And Amitai says, great. What do you mean we? And he said, you're paying, I'm driving. And that was very common. And Amitai said, great, pick the car you want, I'll come pay. Because you know what? From the Bible we study that brothers stick together and care for each other, right? So Amitai says, pick the car and I'll come. And Eliad picks a station wagon. Amitai comes and says, Eliad, you're 18. I don't know any 18-year-old guy that wants to drive a station wagon. What's the story? And he says, Amitai, I measured. I can fit 4 wheelchairs at the back of my car. I'm buying this one. And they buy the car. And Eliad names the car my hero. Because that hero will be there for every kid that needs them. And you can phone them at 2 a.m. and say, I've had a bad day. Chemo destroyed my soul. I'm drained. And Eliad would get there and say, let's go. 2 a.m. Let's go have coffee by the Kinneret. And as I said, he was hyperactive. But in a good way. And he was an octopus. Here and that and the other. After his death, we realized he volunteered at 10 different amutot at the same time. And every single one of them said he was the best at what he did. At the age of 18 and a half, he started his armed service in the Air Force. My brother was very proud. He was at the Air Force. But no, Eliad is not a common guy. He was not into any aircraft. He was driver for the Air Force. He drove the trucks. Okay? So, 18 and a half, he heard that there's going to be a big ceremony at his base. When the pilots have to train for 2 years before they become pilots. So the ceremony is a very big, lavish ceremony. He heard that there's going to be a ceremony at the base. He goes to the head of the base and he says, listen, I'm sorry I'm disturbing you, but I've been volunteering with handicapped kids. Is there any way we can bring 50 handicapped kids to the ceremony? And the officer says, I don't know who you are, kid, but the answer is no. He says, it takes months to prepare the ceremony. Security clearance, we have to give up the social security numbers for clearance months in advance. The ceremony is at the end of the week. There's no way I can bring 50 people. And Eliad says, great, take care of the paperwork. I'll be back in half an hour. Now Eliad's a big guy. Big guy. When he says, do it, even if you don't want to, you might start thinking that you will. But the officer in the army is used to people like that. And he says, no, I told you no. So I'm not preparing any paperwork. And please go back to your mission, to your duty. Eliad calls his father. He knows his father's very good with connection. And says, Abba, we're doing it. The question is how? And my brother says, listen, Eliad, I'm very busy. You're very good at running your own operations. I'll give you a contact, one of my friends that was a high officer in the Air Force, speak to him. And Eliad calls this person, he's almost 80, and he says, listen, Gidon, I want to bring 50 kids to this assembly, to this ceremony. And Gidon says, I'll use my connections, and we'll get you 5. And Eliad said, ha, ha, ha. If the officer said no one, and Gidon says 5, there's got to be a way to bring 50. And he says, Gidon, how are we going to get 50? And he says, Eliad, I really don't know. I'm out of the Air Force for many years, but I have the direct number for the head of the Israeli Air Force. Call him, say Gidon sent you. And Eliad calls the head of the Air Force and says, listen up. I have a favor to offer you.
You're educating the pilots to be an example that everybody looks up to them and everything. And you educate them about morals and everything. But day-to-day life, how does this moral come about? If I will help you and organize for you 50 handicapped kids, I will do all the work. It will be an example for the nation. That at the top ceremony, top military ceremony, you bring in 50 handicapped kids. It will be perfect for you. I'm helping you. And the head of the Air Force says, kid, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you are, but I like it. And it took 3 hours. And after 3 hours, everything was in motion. And the head of the base calls him and says, Eliad, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you did, I don't know who you spoke to, but you can bring 50 kids to the ceremony. And Eliad said, no, you meant bring them for the day. The officer says, what do you mean? He says, you can't just bring handicapped kids for the ceremony. To put them on the bus, they get tired and everything. We're going to bring them for the day. We'll take them around the base, show them the aircraft. We're going to do a fun activity out of it. There's always surplus at the dining rooms. We're going to make a day out of it. I'll make sure shirts are printed and everything is in place, and we'll do a day out of it. And he calls, Toda Michal, we're printing t-shirts. And I say, we? And he says, the same routine. And shirts were printed, and there was a whole day out of it. Comes the time for the ceremony. They wait for the prime minister to sit down, for the president to sit down, for the chief of staff to sit down, for the head of the airport to sit down. Everybody's seated. Along comes Eliad with his group of wheelchairs. Everybody marching after him. He's pushing a wheelchair. Says, hello, Mr. President. Next time, please make sure there's proper arrangements for handicapped people. You should learn about this. And places them in front of everybody else. That was his personality. There was no. And in his mind, the weaker people in society have to come first. That was his personal vision. That was 6 years ago. Every time the pilots have their ceremony, they bring in 50 handicapped kids. So one thing, he changed for good. 7th, they hosted here in the house Shabbat Simchat Torah, a Shabbat Amuta for kids from Kav L'Chaim. Those are kids that suffered severe sicknesses. There were 40 handicapped kids with 40 chaperones. 20 of them staying at my brother's house, and the rest spread around families in the community. When they heard the sirens, they got up, started picking up the kids from wheelchairs from bed. It was 6:30 in the morning, and rushing them into the safe room. Eliad was in Thailand for Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, Yom Kippur. Amitai was in Nepal. They speak to each other and say, listen, we haven't spent time with Abba Anima all the Chazon. And always on Simchat Torah, it's a big event here in the city. The city has all these small shuls placed in shelters like this. There's no big proper shul. So 15 years ago, my brother established that on Simchat Torah, there's a parade. The entire city walks out with Sifrei Torah and dancing and everything. Why? A, there's no big shul. B, if I march in the street, other people join. People that usually don't go to shul. So there's a big parade. And Eliad always brings kids, handicapped kids, to that parade. So they're here. Cooking for 80 people is a no-brainer for us. We do it on a daily basis. I mean, when you raise 7 kids and you have 56 cousins, we're used to that. So they're running that Shabbat. Usually, all the shelters in their city are locked. When the army says there's a warning for rockets, the shelters are open. Ofakim is 27 kilometers from Gaza, all open fields. But the shelters were locked because there was no warning. My brother, as I said, was a big guy. He drags his older son and says, let's break the gate. And the gate we walked in through They broke it. They ran to the street over where we're going to go to now, where they know that there's an older Ethiopian lady, handicapped. They carried her. My brother literally carried her, brought her into the shelter here, and said, "Stay here." And she said to him, "Moshe, please stay with us. We will feel safe if you're with us." And he says, "I have to go open all the shelters in the city, and I'll be back to you." He goes back home and says to his wife, "I'm volunteering for the logistics department in the army. I know where all the keys are. I will drive there, get the keys, about 7 minutes drive from here. I'll get all the keys and open all the shelters in the city." His son, Eliad, says, "Abba, I know how much Shabbat is important for you. I'm not religious. I came back from Thailand Wednesday night. Amitai and Eliad came back from Thailand Wednesday night. They were not supposed to be here on Simchat Torah." He says, "Abba, I don't keep Shabbat. My car's parked right here. I'll drive." And Amitai says, "I'll come as well." So Moshe says to Amitai, to the oldest son, "You will get the neighbor. We'll be 2 teams, and we can cover a much bigger area." So that's what they do. Moshe and Eliad go in one car. Amitai and the rabbi are planning to take the second car. Moshe and Eliad drove out of the city. The surveillance cameras showed us that they drove out of the city, just about starting to get out of the city area, and they heard the gunshots and drove back into the battle. They were in Tamar Street. Amitai and Rabbi, forgot his name, Avramovich, were in the second car behind them. They got shot in Chita Street. Amitai didn't know that his father and his brother are taking part in the battle in Tamar Street. And Amitai, usually when fighters in Israel kill a terrorist, they do an X on their weapon. Okay? So it's a phrase in Hebrew, Kama Xing Yesh Lecha. Okay? So Amitai said, during that battle, I had 0. But I have 12 check marks. Under fire, Amitai, a student at med school, is offering medical help that saved the lives of 12 people, including the rabbi of the city. During the Shiva, Miriam Peretz arrived. I'm sure you have heard the name. And she said to us something extremely powerful. She said, yes, no worries. You heard the bombs over there. We hear the launching of the Kippat Barzel from here. Okay? It's only Kippat Barzel. Miriam Peretz said, never say that they died young. They simply lived really, really fast. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we're here. Because every one of us has the opportunity to be a leader. You're here for the year or 2 or 3 or hopefully stay. Some of you will go back to your communities. Make sure to be the leader for your community. Make sure to make every day count. It's not hard. It's just a set of mind. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be big. You just have to think in a creative way. That's it. Anybody has any questions?
We have plenty of questions.
Okay. Yes. So if anybody wants to make himself a hot drink to take or bathroom, great. And then we're gonna. This is a bit of an older neighborhood, and that's a brand new neighborhood, 10 years old. The new neighborhood, my brother worked to get the paperwork. It was all open fields, and my brother, the city ended here. My brother got the paperwork to approve a new neighborhood because he wanted to attract young families to come live in Ofakim in better housing. But as we'll walk back, you'll see that all the houses look the same on the outside. That was his agreement. All the houses are the same on the outside. We don't judge people based on how their house looks. We are going to judge them about how much they give to the community. So, all the houses are the same on the outside. This is a much older neighborhood. Not the oldest in the city, but an older neighborhood. All the people in this neighborhood have safe rooms, mamad, in their houses. This neighborhood doesn't. So, when they hear rockets, they have to run out of their houses into the safe rooms. The terrorists knew that. They had exact information about everything. So they did not invade the first neighborhood. They invaded the second neighborhood, knowing that once the sirens will start, people will come running out of their houses to this tiny safe rooms and simply slaughter them. And that's what they did. If we're going to go through here, and you'll see that the first time they shelter, the handle is broken. So we managed to break that one as well. Towards the area with the terrorists. So you can still see some of the signs, but this street has 20 people who unfortunately died.
Hold on, can we just get everyone over here?
I'll explain again.
Yeah. Guys,
Well, let's just go and I'll explain everything over there. Nobody left the city at all. Okay? And I'll explain why. So basically, Simchat Torah morning, this is the shul. My brother died to get a further shul. But this is the shul. Okay? Terrorists invaded through this intersection. There's a house here, but right behind the house, it's 27 kilometers of open fields all the way to Gaza. The 2 pickup trucks arrived with 17 terrorists and crazy amount of ammunition. Okay? They were planning to wait for the sirens. People walked out, simply shoot them. And they did for a bit. But they were planning to capture the rooftops around the shuls. And a map was found on one of them with marking of all the shuls in the city. And they were planning to shoot an RPG rocket into every single shul. But they came an hour and a half earlier than the parade. It would have been a completely different outcome. They didn't know that there was a bris taking place here. But they didn't know that. They figured shul is at 9:30, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. They arrived around 7. They didn't know that there's a bris taking place. As I said, they arrived here, 2 pickup trucks. One settled in this street and one settled in this street. Tamar and Kita. My brother drove out of the city. Surveillance cameras showed he continued about 150 meters out, and then he heard gunshots and he drives back. The terrorists were already settled here. His son drove the same path and stopped at that street because there was already a battle taking place at this street, not knowing that his father and his brother died here. So he saved 12 people, but he couldn't save his own father and mother. So, what we know about what happened is from a person, a 23-year-old person that lives further down that street. He said, I walked out to partake of the bris, and I saw a soldier wearing an IDF uniform. I waved to him because I wanted to say, you know what, if you have a second, stop by, there's great food. And at that moment, he aimed a gun at me. And he said it took a split of a second for me to understand that this is not an IDF, even though he's wearing an IDF. They were so sophisticated. They were wearing IDF uniforms. They went to several houses here and rang the bell. And as I said, they came a bit early. People were still sleeping. Had it happened an hour after, the massacre would have been unbearable. So they enter here and they start climbing.
Later because the bris was starting at 8?
Yes, they wanted to end the bris in time for sure. Because there's no big shul, no place to do a bris, not a wedding hall. So the family of the Simcha Davin
Right.
wanted to do did the bris while there's a war happening. Okay? So there was a baby named that while there was a war. Rav Shachar, the Rav of the community, was at the shul when he heard the gunshot. And he ran outside to the street. And he got 3 bullets to his leg. And Amitai, as a big guy. And then I'm talking big, I'm talking 2'10", 2 meters and 10 centimeters. And he's not the tallest in the family. Amitai carries him on his back out of the street to shelter.
Aaron, it was 2 meters 10 is 6'5" and 6'7". It's a tall.
Well, as I said, I don't know what they ate, but they grew well. People say when you speak your grow, they definitely they have their own shit. The rabbi got 3 bullets to his leg. Amitai evacuated him under fire, treated him, Hassam Ofakim, saved his life. The rabbi was at the shul, he came out and heard it. So the battle was taking place in these 2 streets. The whole story of Rachel and the cookies and everything, we're going to see our house in a second. מה אתם, קודם כל מאיפה הגעתם?
לראות מה קורה באופן.
תודה רבה חבר'ה.
אתם מהישיבה מהכותל.
Wow, wow. Wow.
עם ילדים?
Wow. Guys, everyone can see the window where 6 children came out of this window right here.
6 children and 4.
6 children, 4 adults from this window. Come in, come in. From that window over here.
They jumped up there onto the roof and then down here.
Come in, you'll see the windows right here. Pretty stuff. We're going to go up. Michelle's going to let us show where they went up and actually jumped out. Right? She says it's not enough to hear, to actually see some of the miracles here with the destruction. Everyone should pay attention where you're walking, please. Be careful. I'm going to look like you told me.
Careful,
There's a slanted step.
Careful, watch there's an extra step there.
When you come up, the second room to the right, you will see that there are bullet holes because they were able to shoot the windows. The tree seam roof.
זה טיפשית, אבל כן.
לא, היא לא טיפשית, זה הכי... אבל בא בן ואומר, תפתחי את החלון, יש לך צ'אנס לחיות. הזדמנות לחיות, לפתוח את החלון. פיזית, לפתוח חלון, לקפוץ. אמנם היו יריות מסביב, אבל צ'אנס. יש לך צ'אנס לפתוח חלון ולברוח. אנחנו פה ניסינו לזה מתחת למזרון, מתחת למיטה. אבל הוא בא במחשבה מעשי, לפתוח חלון, לצאת החוצה, לברוח. אתה מבין? יכולנו להסתתר מתחת למיטות, גם יכולנו להישרף פה. אתה מבין? אבל ההזדמנות הזו לתת לנו, ואנחנו שומעים יריות מבחוץ, הכל תחת ירי. אבל הוא אומר, לפתוח חלון, לצאת, לא משנה מה. כולם מצליחים לצאת. הוא לא הצליח. לא, אנחנו בחרנו. יכלנו לא להיות פה, גם לדבר. גם על זה לא יכלנו להיות פה. נתן לנו את החיים. הוא ילד מאמין. והוא מאמין שצריך לעשות מעשים. לא להגיד אוי אוי אוי, מה אני עושה עכשיו? לקבל את הגזרה. צריך גם לפעול. זה כמו תורה ועבודה. יש תורה ויש עבודה. נכון, אתה אומר, אתה לא יכול להגיד אוי אוי אוי, אני בפנים, אני בסכנה. אבל אתה צריך לחשוב מה אתה יכול לעשות בשביל להציל את עצמך. והוא עשה את זה. אז הוא הציל 10 נפשות. כל המציל נפש אחת, כאילו הציל עולם מלא. הוא הציל 10. הוא הציל ילדים, הציל הורים, שממשיכים ונתן את הצ'אנס הזה להמשיך. אז אני לא אמשיך אותו. מי אני? נכון, יש כאב, יש צער, יש בכי, יש גם שמחה. כל שבת זה שמחה. אני לא קורא לשבת הזאת שבת שחורה, כמו שנוהגים לקרוא לה. אני לא אוהבת את השבת השחורה. שבת לא יכולה להיות שחורה לעולם. שבת קצת בעייתית. כן. אבל שבת לא יכולה להיות שחורה, כי אנחנו שבוע שלם מכינים את השבת הזאת. לא יכול להיות שהיא תהיה שחורה. שבת היא שבת. אי אפשר להכליל אותה בתוך החושך. איך אנחנו מחכים רק לשבת? איזה כיף, לא חשוב מה אני עושה. אבל היא שבת. אתה לא יכול להגדיר אותה שחורה. אתה יכול להגדיר אותה שבת שיש בה, איך אומרים, לא ציפיתי לשבת הזאת, בצורה כזאת. נכון, לא ציפינו לשבת כזאת, כי המטרה שלנו שבת היא באמת לחגוג ותוסיף את שמחת תורה, ללכת לבית הכנסת ולהוסיף הכל. שבת היא לא שחורה, נכון, זה קרה בשבת, אבל היא לא שחורה. צריך לראות גם את האור בכל הדברים האלה. תבוא עוד שבת. זה לא שבת שמקטעת. כל שבוע, ברוך השם. כל שבת אנחנו מחפשים רק את האור ואת השמחה ואת השבת. סביב שולחן, יש משפחה. אני לא קורא לה שבת שחורה. שבת קשה אולי, אתה יכול להגדיר אותה, תמצא את המילים שאתה רוצה, אבל היא לא שבת שחורה. שבת היא תמיד שבת. אני לא יכול, היא מלכה. היא מלכה. זהו, אנחנו לא מורידים את הכתר הזה. לא מורידים את הכתר שלה. אף אחד, ובוודאי לא הם יבואו ויורדים את הכתר שלה. לא הם, אין להם את הזכות הזו. אנחנו נעצים אותה. נוסיף עוד לכתר הזה. נוסיף לה. יותר ממה שאנחנו חושבים. זו שבת. נכון? אריאל איתנו, אנחנו איתו. כל מה שאנחנו עושים זה יחד איתו. יש לו 2 ילדים, אבישג וצוריאל. יש לו אישה מדהימה, שושנה. אפשר לקטוע? לא. הוא הביא דור המשך. הוא היה בן 28, כאילו הוא רץ מהר. אין לו מה, היה צריך ללכת להתגייס, צבא, חתונה, הכל. וברוך השם, חשבונות השם, גדול עליי. לא מתווכחת איתו, מקבלת באהבה. זה רצון השם. קשה, לא פשוט. אבל נכבד, כמו שאנחנו מכבדים את השבת, את המלכות הזו אנחנו לא נסתיר. נקבל הכל באהבה ונמשיך עם זה. אנחנו נמשיך בעזרת השם, בעזרתו. כמו שישבנו על הגג והתפללנו, רק התפללנו, כמו אינפוזיה כל הזמן. מה שזכרנו בעל פה, כי היינו, זה היה בוקר מוקדם. שאנחנו לא נעשה את זה, ודאי שהם לא ירדו את הכתר הזאת, היא לא שבת שחורה. שהיא תמיד תהיה. הכתר הוא מלכות שלה. את המנוחה, את הכל כן. אבל לא הם אלה שיורדו את הכתר. אף אחד לא יורד את הכתר מהשבת. נכון? לא תמיד זה מוצא חן בעינינו, אין מה לעשות. אבל אנחנו צריכים ללמוד גם לקבל את הצד השני. את רצון השם. אנחנו אנשים מאמינים, אנחנו מתבטאים מאמינים. אז אנחנו צריכים רק לקבל את זה, ולהמשיך, לא לעצור, כי הם שם בחושך. שם הם באו, מי שהיה באור לא יכול לעשות דבר כזה. מי שבא מהאפלה, מהחושך, אין לו תחושה. הוא לא יודע מה זה. הוא לא יודע, הוא בא לכאן כי בעצם היותך יהודי, לא יודעת, רצחו גם ערבים, כנראה שגם את זה אליהם, כנראה יחסי אנוש אינהם שום דבר. אנחנו פה, אנחנו נמשיך, הבית הזה יואר בעזרת השם, אנחנו צריכים להעיר קודם את הנשמה, את הנפש, הבית, אנחנו נעיר אותו. ועוד איך שהוא יקום, וכולנו נהיה פה. זה רצון השם גם. כן? יעשו מסביב לשולחן בחגים, בשבתות, וביום יום שלנו. כן? אנחנו, זה הציווי שלנו.
אנחנו נשמח לראות את הבית בנוי, מלא שמחה, מלא משפחה, מלא אור. אנחנו נשמח לחגוג יחד איתך.
אומנם הבית חשוך, אני רואה את האור הקודם. מי שנכנס פעם ראשונה רואה את החושך. אני רואה את האור שהיה כאן. למרות הצבע המגעיל הזה, אבל כן.
איפה את חיה עכשיו?
נמצאים בחושך. איך?
איפה את חיה עכשיו?
שכרתי יחידת דיור קטנה. ככה לשים את הראש, להביא את הנכדים קצת, ללכת, לצאת. כן. הם נמצאים היום במנהרות. זה הגיוני שבן אדם חי במנהרה? זו מציאות הגיונית? הם נמצאים במנהרות. זה שהם נמצאים במנהרה זה תופעה של בעלי חיים. לא של בני אדם. בעלי חיים נמצאים במנהרה. מחילות. שם הם צריכים להיות. אנשים, יש להם בית. לא מחילה ולא... זה כמו לחיות במערות. הם באפלה. לא אנחנו. הם נמצאים היום שם. חושבים שהם, איך אומרים, רק פחדנים נמצאים במנהרות. רק פחדן נמצא שם. וזה הם. ואין מה לעשות עם זה. תודה לכם שבאתם.
מיכל, תודה רבה רבה.
תודה לכם שבאתם. תודה לכם.
Hey guys, we're going outside, okay?
We work here with the Organization for Children with Cancer. Very, very special person, and I really have to say a few words.
Hi, I'm Daniel. My English is not so good, so please.
No one's gonna laugh at you, it's okay.
No. That you walk in... It's okay, you can talk. כן, זה קצת קשה לי אנגלית. תגיד, זה עברית קלה. אוקיי, בעברית.
דבר לאט, תדבר מהר.
כן, מכיר את זה. היה כמות גדולה של הרוגים ופצועים, ולא היה מענה. אי אפשר לעזור, כי אמבולנסים לא הגיעו, לטפל, צבא לא היה, היחידים שרצו לעזור, זה היה שוטרים שפשוט לקחו את הנשק מהבית ויצאו להגן על אנשים, וכאלה שהם מאיחוד הצלה ולא ממד"א. מד"א לא היה מוכן להיכנס לשום מקום, רק איחוד הצלה היה מוכן להיכנס, כי הם עבדו בהתנדבות. בדרך כלל אנחנו יודעים שמי שמתנדב במשהו, הוא עושה את זה מכל הנשמה שלו, ואז אין לו חשש מכלום. ואני בבוקר הגעתי לנקודה מסוימת, כי הייתי אמור לחבור, להיות יחד עם הכתב, כדי לעשות שידורים, להתחיל לצלם ולעשות שידורים במשך כל היום הזה. ובשלב מסוים כשאני נוסע לכיוון אותו מקום שיש את כל הבלגן של המסיבה, עוצר אותי חבר ואומר לי, תעצור פה, אתה לא יכול להתקדם, כי אם אתה מתקדם, יהרגו אותך. כי יש המון מחבלים, כשאני אומר המון מחבלים, אתם צריכים להבין, זה לא 10 ו-20 ו-30, זה מעל 1,000 מחבלים שמסתובבים על כל הגזרה, וכל מה שהם רואים פשוט יורים בהם, וזה לא מעניין אותם אם אתה אפילו ערבי, מוסלמי, או אתה יהוד, לא משנה, פשוט הורגים. והכמות הזו של ההרוגים והפצועים היא פשוט בלתי נתפסת, זה לא נתפס, אי אפשר להבין את הטרגדיה הזו. אני לדעתי, כאילו אני לא רוצה להאריך יותר מדי, כי זה לשבת שעות ולספר את הסיפור, זה ארוך. יש לי גם עבודה עכשיו לצלם, אז אני חייב לקצר. אני פה נכנס למשפחה שאיבדה 2 מהילדים שלהם כשהם יצאו להגן פה ממש ברחוב המקביל. אבל זה עוד משהו שמוכיח לנו שאני לא יודע מי, אני רואה אתם כולם עם כיפות פה, אז נוגעים בנושא מה שנקרא רוחני, אבל לאורך כל ההיסטוריה שלנו, בשום מקום לא היה מצב שבו העם היה כל כך מאוחד. ואני חושב שאנחנו גורמים לעצמנו את הבעיות של עצמנו. ואני חושב שבגלל מה שהיה בשנתיים 3 האחרונות, אני מאמין שכאילו אלוהים אומר, חבר'ה, סתירה כדי להעיר אתכם. כי זה לא הגיוני, זה לא נתפס, שלא יכולנו לדעת על דבר כזה מוקדם יותר. מדינה שיש לה את השב"כ הכי טוב, את המוסד הכי טוב, את המודיעין הכי טוב, לא מצליחה להבין דבר כזה, זה משהו שלדעתי זה לא יד אדם, זה משהו מלמעלה מגיע. ואני אגיד משפט קצר, כי אני צריך ללכת, אם לא נדע לחבק כולנו אחד את השני ולאהוב מפה, לא מפה או מפה, אלא מפה, אז 7 לאוקטובר יגיע עוד 10 שנים יותר גרוע. חבר'ה, תרגישו טוב, אני חייב ללכת.